Welcome back, everyone. This is Chase, and today I'm joined by John Acevedo, the design ambassador for Under Armour. Thanks for joining me.
Well, great to be here. It's an honor, really.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking time. You've been a great partner and friend of our program, the Outdoor Product Design and Development Program, for a while, and had hoped to get you out on campus. With everything going on, that's not possible, but thankfully we can talk a little bit today and maybe tease out some lessons and get some of your thoughts on your background, kind of how things are going right now for you and for the company. And we'll get you out here another time for sure.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I love the program you guys are building, and all the people I've met from the program have been awesome. So looking forward to that day very much.
Yeah. In the meantime, glad to be able to talk to you now, and glad to hear that you're doing well. We'll get into some of that. I kind of want to get your thoughts, and as everything's broken out, would love to just hear a little bit about your thought process and what's been going on in your head throughout all of this. But kind of going back, we'll get into current events and everything that's happening now. But for those who don't know you, I want to peel back the curtain a little bit and learn a little bit about your background and how you got into this industry. And from what I know, you've been involved in sports and outdoors for quite a while, at a few different companies, a lot of the big ones. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your background, your pathway into this industry, and why sport and outdoor? Why this industry?
This all occurred on a fluke. I actually had a similar situation. I graduated from university in 1994, and I graduated from a really tiny university in Rhode Island, which was Roger Williams University, in architecture. And pretty passionate about architecture. I was really excited to go into the field, but I graduated during one of the worst building recessions for the Northeast, and practically most of the U.S. At that time. And so it was difficult. Times were really rough, really hard to get work. Nobody was hiring. If they were hiring, they were wanting you to work for free or work as a consultant because they didn't want to pay necessarily benefits or anything like that for you. Which coming out of school, I knew nothing about, which was daunting. So you had to do your own taxes. There were all kinds of these things where you kind of had to set up your own business. And I was like, wow, just hoping to graduate and get a job. And there was a lot of things happening at this time in my mind. My mom worked blue-collar jobs forever. She immigrated to the States. I was the first to ever go to university for my family. And so it was really hard for me to know that was happening, that my mom was still supporting me after the fact of having gone through 5 years of school, getting my bachelor's degree in architecture. I was still living at home. And back then it wasn't like an acceptable thing. You're like, geez, I'm not doing so well here. So for me, what happened is I had a friend in architecture school. His name is Aaron Richter. And Aaron and I were talking in my third year of architecture school, and he told me about what he was doing for summer work. And it blew my mind at the time. Here's a guy who's pursuing architecture just like I am, and he was designing shoes for Saucony. And we were both from the Northeast. I was from Salem, and I think he was up from Newburyport. And he said, "Yeah, that's what I'm doing for summer work." And the next town over from me, I didn't even know that Saucony existed. I knew the brand, but I didn't even know that they were there. And so when this all hit the fan and I graduated, I spent about a year and a half in and out of architecture jobs. And then the recession got even worse. And I got laid off my job, and I decided, well, I'm just going to call Aaron and see if there's a way to meet with somebody at Saucony to see if I could just even intern. And so that set off a series of events that changed the course of my life completely. I did eventually get into Saucony very quickly, interning there. And then I interned and then was hired on and spent about 2.5 years at that brand, which was an amazing entrance into the the world of athletics. Saucony being a storied running brand, very well respected running brand. It was, and some of the people I got to work with there, who I still like to this day love, were amazing influences on me. Um, they changed my life and my perspective on things. I found out real quickly that architecture was kind of a very slow moving pace. Building takes a fairly long time to plan out and build. The bigger you go, the longer that time span is. And working at such a small scale and seasonally, I loved it. It was quick. It utilized every bit of my ingenuity. How to learn things that I never thought I had to, particularly even had in my mind to learn. Going from architecture at that time, which everything was hand drawn and hand drafted, was easy. Had a parallel rule, you have triangle, you're set. Soft goods, not so easy. So it's a more organic process. And so I had to learn a lot of things on the fly, and Saucony was amazing for that. They took the time to really teach me about the fundamentals of biomechanics, all the things that you would need, why they're important, why you should have a respect for those subject matters, marketing, biomechanics, even down to sales. We were small enough where I got to see all of that at that brand. So till this day, I really appreciate the education I got there, because it really set me off on a solid path, and really gave me a respect for performance footwear versus just aesthetic or fashion footwear.
It seems like you could have easily, well, I don't know, at that stage of your life, from what I'm hearing, it was just hard to find any opportunity. And so you kind of found footwear design just out of a sheer need, right? It's like, I got to find something.
Yeah.
Is that accurate to say you kind of just took what was in front of you and ran with it?
That's incredibly accurate. In fact, I remember saying when I started doing footwear, because here's my mom thinking like, you're doing shoes or you're making shoes, and I'm like, no, I'm actually designing the shoes. I'm not like physically making the shoes. And she not understanding that, and especially like she thought I was going to be an architect. That was a big hurdle for her to kind of wrap her mind around. But I remember there was a certain point when I started working at Saucony. I said, I'm just going to do this for a couple of years to pay down my student loans. And I laugh at that now, because it's, that 2 years I was supposed to spend doing footwear turned into like a 25-year, career.
Right. Yeah. And
Awesome.
it's for so many people, like footwear design is the dream, right? It's become this whole, it was already an industry, but it's at a whole nother level now, right? It's this coveted role, right? To be a footwear designer. When back then, you say footwear designer and people think you're a cobbler or something, right?
Yeah. A lot of people thought that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And this is advice that I try to give, right? You were graduating and you took an internship, and I think you didn't let your pride get in the way and say, well, I deserve, a full-time job. And you could have never known what that internship would have turned into, right? I think at this point, like we're in very different territory, but similar in a way, in terms of maybe limited opportunities. And sometimes, just taking what's in front of you can lead to, you never know what that can lead to, right?
You don't. The way I was raised, I tried not taking anything for granted. I knew that this was an opportunity. I didn't know where it would lead. I certainly didn't think it would be this far into it. Be 25 years into it at all. But what was so great about it, and I think this is what you're getting at, is sometimes the most smallest things change the course of your life in such a profound way. Because when I went to that internship, the people were amazing. And they took care of me, and they cared about what I thought and how I was doing my job. And I felt a level of confidence and integrity with the work that they were doing that was just amazing. So I went with it. And we got me some really good experiences.
That's advice that I try to give is, in some ways, if it's the right opportunity, it's worth doing it for free, right? Just to get that experience and invest in yourself, or it's worth, getting that internship, even if you're, graduating and that seems, beneath you, right? To do that. It's like nothing should be beneath you if you're investing in yourself and you're getting experiences and you're surrounding yourself by really good people, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, that you said there is like, look, the universe works in incredibly mysterious ways. If something's just handed to you like that and you're given an opportunity, you're absolutely right. You just never know what you're going to learn or how it's going to impact your life. You got to look at it. I grew up in a situation where I was a product of a single family, single parent household. We didn't have a lot. It took everything, every bit of resource we had to get me through college and university. And I looked at that as like a saving. It was a lifeline to me. It was a lifeline to do something meaningful. Even if it was to like, when I was doing architecture, I was doing blueprints in a basement.
hmm.
And when you did blueprints in a basement, it was a smell of ammonia and it was nasty. And I was doing that for 8 hours a day in the architecture field. I got into Saucony. I had my own office, my own desk. As an intern, they treated me really extremely well. It was in the heart of the building at the time, so you didn't have any windows, but you still had your own office. I mean, it was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And I was expected to be creative, and my thoughts mattered. And that was a big shift. And so I didn't have that going into architecture, and I wouldn't have had that for many years later. Had I stuck with the field. That's because that's just the way that field works. So going in as an intern, I was being paid and I had even benefits. And so that was amazing. I mean, going from literally nothing to a lot. So I've never looked at any opportunity as being beneath me, even now. Um, I literally am known to say with people within my office, like, if they need my help, I'm not above getting you coffee or helping you do drawings, because I want to learn. And even if you got a person coffee, you're going to learn something about that person. And even if you did their drawings, you're going to learn something about them as a human being. So this is the biggest hang up I think people have, is that they feel sometimes entitled to things. And I don't operate in that world. I never have. I generally just want to learn about people and spend time with people. And that's gotten me really far in this world, in terms of my own personal growth and learning about other people and what makes them tick and how you can be a part of their world. So
I want to dive in a lot more into that. Just your work with people, and kind of how that relates to your current role. And we'll get to that point. But did, as you were, going down this path of architecture, did you have an awareness of product? Were there certain products that stuck out to you? Did you have an appreciation for good product, for good design as it relates to products, or is that something that you discovered when you fell into this role?
well, college was a major mind bender for me, because I had gone through high school with very little to no art being in my foundation at all. I knew that there was a painting studio. I didn't even know how to get into it in high school. The only thing that as close as I got was a drafting course that was taught by a gentleman, Mr. Leonard, and he was awesome. I still remember the cardigan sweaters, and he was a hard man, but he cared, and he cared about all of us. And it was wonderful because he taught me the value of having perseverance and a work ethic. And so I truly look back on that time as being incredibly formative um, in my development, and really understanding like, hey, um, there's more to life. And so I had gone from high school into college, um, kind of like with that curiosity. And so when I got to college, I went full, like, way into the creative, like architecture. I like lived ate, slept the studio. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be creative. I built models. I did all kinds of different mediums. I explored everything I could. I was voracious. People in the studio, I'm sure if you got some after Davids from people during that time when I was there, they would tell you I was there all the time. People would leave and come back, and I'd still be in the same clothes building this model. And it was like years of repression of like creativity that came out of me in those 5 years. And then I even eventually got into the art program at the university and was able to be a TA for metal welding and sculpture. And so that was a whole new avenue that opened up. And I started going to junkyards, getting scrap metal, putting things together. And so I was not aware of myself until much later than most people, which was crazy to me. I'd always had an interest in certain things. I remember being very young and working for this lady that I worked, who taught me English. I didn't even speak English when I was born in the States, but I didn't speak English. My parents were immigrants. They spoke only Spanish. She taught me English. And then when my dad passed away, she offered to like give me work. And it was just menial stuff. It was like going to her house and like chopping vegetables or learning how to take care of her yard or ironing clothes. And I remember her saying like, I really like your work ethic. So why don't you come over and do this? And so I did that from the age of 9 until my last year of university, even beyond that. And so this relationship goes back that's a story for another day. And what I'm trying to go with that is that, these experiences that you have, they're so formative into getting you where you need to be. And so going back to the question, I just was latent. I just didn't get the opportunities. And so when they came, I was like, yeah, I'm into that. And the reason she's important is because when I worked for her, she in her attic had Architectural Digest magazines. And so I grew up looking at those whenever I could sneak away in her attic and look at them. And the layout, the graphic design, and the architecture were always things that I just loved. So again, like it was this delayed growth in the arts. I'd always been looking at it. I had always been kind of like, understanding it, but it wasn't until later that I really started to really appreciate what things were and how they worked and what was important and what was captivating.
Right. It seems similar to just the sports and outdoor industry being, people I don't know if realize it's as in some ways as legitimate of as an industry as it is, or creativity, right? Because maybe they just don't have access to it, right? Like, yeah. There are probably so many people who could thrive in the sports and outdoor industries, but they just don't know it's available to them. Same as creativity, right?
Right.
Because you started to get access to it, right? Something inside of you was unlocked, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't know that product was that thing that you had inside of you until you got the opportunity at Saucony, right?
Yeah.
So there's this whole question. We could do like a whole part 2, right? On just like how to provide more access to like creativity to more people, right? Or outdoor experiences to more people, and what that does to unlock something in those people. But I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but the train of thought you were going down just kind of made me think of that. This question of access to creativity and
that's kind of why I'm doing the work I'm doing now. I've been doing this work as a hobby for a long time. And the work I'm talking about, obviously I have my job. I'm a designer. That's what I'm known as. My title's been creative director, designer, senior designer, all that stuff. But the work that I'm here to do on Earth, I think, has always been I've been super fortunate to have very good people in my life that have steered the course of my life. And now I'm trying to really work on doing that for other people. So being a design ambassador, I love that. People always ask me, what does that mean? And it really means is I'm trying to find the next generation of talent for the brand. and I take that work very seriously. I do feel it's part of what I'm here to do, and we always search for that higher calling or purpose. Um, it's something that I've invested my time on willingly over the years, but now I have the backing of a huge brand and a platform that they've given me to see if I can make a scaled, mass scaled reality for people. And so, as fortunate as I've been to have people change and shift the course of my life, maybe now um, is my opportunity to pay some of that back.
Right. So we're jumping over some of your history, some really important pieces, but I also want to dive into the design ambassador side of things since we're going down that train of thought. But what prepares you to be a design ambassador? Is it years?
When you find that out, tell me.
Yeah. I guess where I'm going with that is you've worked for quite a few different companies,
Yeah.
leading brands, Fila, Adidas at all levels, right? Rising in the ranks, up to senior design leadership. So I imagine that gives you a really interesting perspective when, as a design ambassador, you're, correct me if I'm wrong, you're there to kind of set the tone or create a culture or unlock that culture. In a design team. Maybe share a little bit. What is that? What does a design ambassador do? You alluded to it a little bit, but what are you doing day to day? And what does that role really entail?
So you're right. I mean, a lot of the things that I'm trying to do is to really kind of create a culture at Under Armour. And there are other people who are working on this. I'm not the sole proprietor of that mission per se, but I have a stake in it. And so what we're trying to do is really build a strong internal culture. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what that looks like. And I spent a lot of time trying to build the resources to support that. And also at the same time, try and draft out what it looks like to be on the outside, being able to speak intimately to people about what it is to be at Under Armour and what we're hoping to achieve with the talent that we have there. So there's a lot of parts to it. Three major ones, if I want to break it down, which is going out to the universities and building relationships that are meaningful, that not only benefit the university, but benefit Under Armour mutually in a way that is holistic. Not just, hey, we want your interns. We want to understand what that university is, how they're operating, how we can help, and how we can lean in to help create the next set of students, and to actually share with them our culture and how we're showing up. So there's that part of the work, which you could call it recruitment. There's more of like a human resources aspect with our internal culture. And there's a last part of that, which is more around trying to give back to our communities, which that was an initiative for 21, which is definitely going to be pushed out. So there are three major parts to that. And the middle part is the one that's really sticky, because that's where everything good comes out of, which is our internal people and our culture. Without them, none of the other stuff matters, because I could be bringing new talent in, but if they're not ready and if they're not being served well, and we're not clear about where we want to go as a brand, then it's for naught. So they're my most important part of what I'm trying to do and trying to achieve at Under Armour, is to really give them the opportunities they want, to connect them with people from the outside and to create a symbiotic relationship with those people.
Right. If you could give a definition to the word culture, what would that be without pulling out your Webster's dictionary? People throw that word around just as much as they throw around innovation, right?
Yeah.
How would you define culture?
I have my own definition of culture, and to me, it's more about family. It's about all of us caring about each other in a very intimate way, where we understand each other and we understand and respect what we each bring to the table. so that we can be stronger together. It doesn't have to do with like, hey, I'm going to, package up this nice word of culture, and talk about just how we react and behave, and we should be homogenous. It's about all the individuality we have, looking at that and accepting that, and learning how to be one with each other and being strong in that belief. So my definition is a little different, but I want everybody to be able to sing at their highest octaves. That's ultimately, at the end of the day, what would make me happy. And that's how I define and look at culture, is giving everybody the opportunity to have their own diverse voice, and knowing that they're safe in a family that really wants them to see achieve their highest potential.
That's a great definition. I really like that. And it's different from what I think people perceive culture to be within a company. For some people looking from the outside in, it's, oh, they've got ping pong tables, or they've got amenities, or, the company has stuff, right?
Right.
Entertainment for me while I'm at work.
No.
Your definition is very different. And I think, it's really the polar opposite. I mean, not saying any of those things are necessarily bad, but there's like a heart and a soul to what you're saying, which is a lot more meaningful.
At the end of the day, I really want people to have meaningful relationships with one another. That's the most important thing. If I had to boil it down, we spend anywhere from 40 to 60 hours together working. We spend more time with these people than our families.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's got to mean something beyond just getting a paycheck. And it has to be more in terms of human relations and spending time with each other than it's ever meant.
Right.
Especially after what's happening now.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me into, everything that's happening right now, and why culture is so important, especially in these moments. Maybe take me back, maybe a month or two, right? As all of this started to develop, what was your thought process? And then maybe we can talk about kind of where you're at right now, and how you're feeling. Where was the company? Where were you just a few months ago as this was starting to rear its head?
A few months ago, I was booking travel to go to Utah to see you guys and spend some really quality time with you guys. And I was super excited about that. I was actually doing some work with, and still doing some work with the Art Center Pasadena down in California. So setting up a studio with them, and we're just about to wrap that up next week. And I was just doing, getting more people ready for internships during the summer. I had created a short list of people I was going to interview for the summer internship program, which is our favorite, really robust time to be at Under Armour as an intern. And I was super excited the people I found. So, there's a lot of like hope and optimism for an amazing summer, getting to meet new people, really spending time with you guys in Utah, and seeing some other universities nationally, and really trying to build up this, what I call the design embassy, a lot more. But then this thing hit. And so it kind of reset everything. So the second part of your question is like, it's kind of a little bit of a mind bender. When I was, when this hit, I was supposed to be down in California, and it was the weekend, and I think it was Thursday. I had booked my ticket to go, and I was going to be there next week. And the week, I think it was on Monday, I was going to be there in Pasadena on Monday. And on Friday, the World Health Organization announced that this has gotten to a level of a pandemic. And I remember driving around kind of shell-shocked from that. And one thing you probably know about me, Chase, is like, I care deeply about people. And I was like, I had people coming in from Baltimore to like California, which was one of the first early areas of getting any kind of sign of coronavirus or COVID-19. And I had to make a really hard call to like call the trip off and move everything virtually over the weekend for us to be still able to participate with the art center. And I knew at the beginning of that this was going to change everything. And there was a lot of things swirling through my head during that time, for sure. And so it's still going on now.
How long ago was that? 10 years? 10 years ago?
It feels like it. It totally feels like it. It's hard to imagine it's been maybe a month, 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. So where do you feel like you're at right now? How are you feeling, with this month, 10 years that's passed? How are you feeling now?
I think more than ever, I find myself in a really incredibly introspective time. It's really become important. And I got to give a lot of my growth and my learning is through being married to my wife, who's amazing, Heather. And she's like, you got to make a list of people that you want to keep in contact with, that you maybe haven't talked to. I mean, this is a big thing. You got to be super aware of how people are feeling around you. And I really took that advice to heart. So I've been trying to call people I haven't talked to in a long time, just because it's important. We just don't know enough of what's going on out there, truly, to know that those people are going to be around. And again, it's this question, and we talked about this at the beginning of the conversation, really not taking anything for granted, and trying to be present in the moment. So if anything, I think I'm really working hard to be more present in the moment than I've ever been.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a great lesson for all of us. What have you learned about your team or, your coworkers, the people that you work with day to day?
It was interesting because we're all really super creative people, and I really appreciate. That's my dog in the background. I don't know if you can hear that. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
We're all super creative. Our innovation, and so I sit in the innovation team, and we're all super creative, driven people. And when this hit, we kind of we're in the same area. It's a very small area. We kind of see each other each day, but we're into our work. And that's one of the things I love about our team, is we're so into what we're doing. But we didn't really communicate enough. And so one of the things I've helped to set up is like a Monday and Friday check-in. So Monday is let's set our intentions for the week, no matter if we get there or not. And then let's check in on Friday. And then that one little action has actually been awesome, because we're sharing more than we've ever shared before. And I love that. I've needed that. When I went away from the creative side into the more part of what I'm doing now with recruitment and HR, and actually work with those two functions at Under Armour, it was kind of night and day, because the way that recruitment and human resources works with my role, we are a solid team. And it's something that I've wanted for a long time. And it's hard to create in the creative part, believe it or not, unless you're part of a consultancy, and maybe you get a little bit more of that. But with our team, what I'm finding out is just the level of depth everybody has. And so having those little meetings at the beginning to set intention on a Monday, and then Friday as a happy hour of sorts, has really brought us closer together. But again, I think that goes back to leadership. And, if you get into that word, which is a loaded word for me, which really I believe it to mean stewardship, taking care of people, not necessarily leading them to tell them what to do. It's more about allowing yourself to understand and see life through their eyes, and then helping them achieve what they're trying to achieve, which is a different take on leadership. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about taking care of people and making sure that they're okay. So I think, if anything, this has kind of brought us closer together in a way that I didn't really necessarily anticipate.
Right.
In a time that it's really easy to be separated.
Right. Oh, for sure. How have you as a creative stayed motivated and creative during this time? I imagine, unless you have really exciting walls, how do you stay creative when you're looking at the same, your world is kind of the same every day? How do you keep it how do you make it different? How do you stay creative?
Well, geez, this is like one of those questions that just makes you go right back into your childhood. So I told you I was raised by a single parent. I was also an only child, so I had to find ways to be really creative with not a lot of stuff around me. So I've always had a pretty vivid imagination. So that's helped me out through this whole entire thing. That's not not a bad thing to have. Besides that, I've been trying to like do a lot more reading since I have the time. And actually, what's nice about this whole thing is that you get the opportunity to kind of run your own schedule a little bit. So I'll get up in the morning and walk the dog, which is something I've never been able to do, or go on a walk with the family, which is again something that would be hard to do. Get home pretty late sometimes, and so that's really kind of opening me up to different ways of looking at stuff. When you see how your kids look at something versus how you look at something, it will impact you. On the creative side, I'm always trying to look at new inspiration, trying to find it anywhere. Instagram is an amazing well of information. So is in Tumblr. So I've been hitting those pretty hard. And then I just been thinking in this introspective thing, you just get thinking back to what things I like to do. I have a little bit more time than usual in some respects. So I've been going back to just drawing stuff that makes me happy, and really enjoying that, which is, I gotta say, it's great. I've gotten my old tools from storage, some of my old architecture stuff, and starting to break that out slowly, not very fast. And I've been sketching again, which has been great, just because I have time to kind of think that way. So up until now, I mean, getting this off the ground, being an ambassador, I spend a lot of time writing emails, doing a lot of communications, which is like I always turn it into a graphic design exercise every time I send something out, so it looks pretty tight. I'd be remiss if it didn't. And so I've been using my creativity that way.
Right. That's great. What are you picking up any new hobbies, or just a lot of old hobbies, getting them out of the box?
I'm getting some of it out of the box right now.
Okay.
Nothing new yet, but
Right.
I wish I had one of my guitars. I was trying to learn how to play guitar for a long time. They're both like, I should have picked one up. I was in storage the other day. I should have grabbed one, but that would be great to learn how to do that again, or try to learn how to do that, or at least practice. But other than that, it's really about polishing off the old stuff that I really
Mm-hmm.
loved.
Yeah.
I am actually going to start drafting on Mylar film, which is the last few years that I was in architecture school. I was doing all kind of plastic lead on Mylar film drawings, and I'm like just on the precipice of like I got all the materials from storage, and there's a couple of things that I need to order, and I'm going to start model building again, just to see what it's like. Nearly, God, I'm nearly almost 25 plus years later. What does it feel like to run a pencil over a piece of chipboard and cut it out with an X-Acto knife and build something out of nothing?
Right.
What does that feel like as a nearly 50-year-old, to go back to that space and just have to create with very analog things? No laser cutter, just your hands, some glue, an X-Acto knife, some chipboard, some plastic lead on Mylar. What does that feel like? Because I know I miss it and I dream about it. So
yeah, I mean, with technology, everything's moved that way, right? Design wise. Yeah. I mean, 3D apparel design, 3D footwear design. Yeah. I mean, a lot that we've talked about. This is probably a great time to go back to the analog a little bit and just see what, where that path leads. Right. And I think of one of our students now, one of your employees, Veronica, some of her work was always impressive to me. She did footwear designs that were collages, right? So she'd come up with the silhouette, but then make a collage, and pull from existing patterns from magazines. And I hadn't seen anyone do that. Right. I'm sure other people have, but, I'm sure that opened up a whole nother world. Right. Or, just using something a little more analog. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a good time to do that. Um,
And if the power ever goes out, I'm safe,
yeah. Right.
that EMP explodes by accident,
Yeah.
or, there's no electricity more in the world. Yeah, I'll be fine. I'll
Right.
be still able to do what I'm doing.
Well, and that's the design. I feel like, we talk to our students about this, like they shouldn't, as a designer, they shouldn't be defined by the tool that they use. Right. And I
Right.
think that's where you have an appreciation for design across the board, whether it's architecture, footwear, apparel, just design in all its different mediums. And you've dabbled in a lot of them. If you limit yourself to one tool, if that tool, the power
Yeah.
runs out, what do you do? Right. And then I think you might start to question, yourself as a designer, or so I think that's interesting. Just realizing what is it that makes you creative, right? It's not the tool that you're using,
No,
right? That can
the
help
tool is an
unlock things,
extension.
but it's
Yeah.
all inside you, right?
It's all inside you. I hate to say this, back in the day, um, you would get blueprints from the factory, and you were expected to alter those blueprints with the tools you brought, which typically was a French curve, some whiteout, and a red pen. That's what I started with. And I started going to China when none of the highways were built. In fact, I've been going there for so long that there was no infrastructure for that.
Wow.
So it's, I have a deep appreciation for what analog means in a lot of different frames of reference. When I talk about analog with some people, and it makes me chuckle, because the constant thing that I get from the newer generation is like, well, we got Gravity Sketch, we got this, and I got Rhino, and I've got this, and I can use a computer to do this. And I'm like, I can too. But there's something satisfying about letting your hand take you on a journey and show you something that you've never seen before, by accident, by not trying to be so damn perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish more people would key into that. And some people that I've met, I'm actually working with a young lady right now, who's lived more on the engineering side, is really trying to work to be an industrial designer. And she's kind of, maybe this isn't quite that accurate, but she's a little bit afraid of drawing with her hand and sketching. In fact, she's grown up in a world of just computerization of that bit. And I'm like, we have to go to the fundamentals. When everybody is like so reliant on machines and programs, and I love them. I mean, I got to say, I love Illustrator to the nth degree. It's one of my favorite programs to use, and I've been able to bend it in so many different ways. But yeah, sometimes you got to be able to like do it with this analog and see what comes out, because that slight twitch of the hand becomes a line that is actually something phenomenal that allows you to build off of that in a way that you never thought possible. So that's the only something you can get by drawing.
Right.
So you're not trying to be perfect.
Yeah. Have you seen, with all of, the design team, everyone from Under Armour working from home, it definitely has felt like a long time, this whole experience. Maybe not long in a product cycle, but the designs that you're seeing from the team, do you see a difference? When people are working from home, has their current situation influenced the design? Have you seen some of that happening? Or has it not been long enough to tell?
Not long enough to tell, but I look back in history, Chase, and I think about things that have happened. And when we've had situations like this, historically, they've been some of the most creative periods of time. When you look back into history, when we had big movements of art, they were during some of the most dire, kind of nasty times in the free world. So I'm expecting that people are going to have time to really think through things, where they may be distracted with devices or other people. Some of those things are kind of toning down a little bit. So you really have some like bandwidth to really get intimate with what you're trying to do. So I'm excited to see what comes out of it, to be honest. I think this is a massive opportunity for anybody who's creative, um, to reevaluate what's important to them first and foremost on a personal and deep level, and secondly, to really look at your own work and say, like, how can I be better, and how can my impact, um, be more felt.
Right. So with that, what would you say to people who, you know, maybe are looking for work right now, students who are graduating, like if there's not opportunities there, how do you use this time? Like what would you say to people
Mm.
regarding the time that we're in, and maybe, obviously it's not the ideal situation to be graduating, or
Right.
a lot of people have been let go. What do you say to those people? Who this You don't want to say this is an opportunity. It's, this is the last
Mm.
thing that people want, but how do you rebound from this?
Look, these are these are uncertain, hard times, and there's a lot of way people like deal with these moments in time. Um, my advice would be is to really search yourself out, understand how you want to come out of this. Like, if you're not happy in your current situation right now, evaluate that. You're given time right now that kind of evaluate what's important to you. If you think you could be better at something, pick it up. Nobody's watching you. Nobody's like telling you what to do. If you feel a fear that you're, not good at something, this is the moment where you get to be good at something that you're afraid of. And so my first thing would be is to face your fear. The next thing would be to like really work on your craft, your storytelling. If you have that page in your portfolio you're not proud of, this is the moment. You gotta seize the moment right now. We could hope that this goes away, that this doesn't, upend us. And when I say we, I mean all of us. So the best way to do that is to keep positive and to know that we're going to be coming out the other side at some point. When you come out the other side, what are you going to be looking like? And what have you done with that time that were given that you typically don't get? So more than ever, it's so important for you to focus. Look inward and find yourself and ask the tough questions. How am I going to be better after this? That work is never work that's lost, and it's so important. And we live in a world where it's so easy to be distracted, and we've been told as a human race to sit down and take a moment. You see the impacts on the earth: less smog than ever, less pollution than ever, animals coming back into some of our major parks. The whole human race has been told to pause, do something with it, do something for yourself, find yourself, and then get ready. Because once it gets back up and mobilized, you want to be clearer on who you are.
Right. Yeah. Along those lines, I talked to a hiring manager recently, and her episode is going to go up here. Well, by the time this airs, it'll have been out. But um, she said one of the questions that she's going to ask people after all of this, when they start hiring again, is, "What did you do at that time? How did you respond?" Which I thought was a really interesting question. And everyone's going to be in a very similar situation, right? And so that's going to be one of those standard questions that you can ask is, what happened to you during the pandemic, right? It's this one thing that we've all shared, right? It really is a shared experience, and some people definitely, feeling the impacts more than others. We've all felt it in a way, but you know, there's plenty of people who have felt it a lot harder. Um,
Yeah.
just, that's an understatement. But I thought that was an interesting question, and you went down that path as well. So what do you do at this time? Um, you know, you mentioned this a little bit. Where do you see us after this? It's hard to see into the future at all,
Mm,
right? Let
yeah.
alone now. But how do you see work changing? How do you see work at Under Armour changing? How do you see the work of creatives changing
Yeah.
from all of this? It's hard to know because it depends on how long this goes. But
It's incredibly hard to know. Um, I wish I had that crystal ball. I still feel like we're still in the middle of it to even
mhm,
know where the light at the end of the tunnel is some
yeah,
days. Um, it's incredibly hard to know what that's going to look like. I have some hope on some things. It's not necessarily forecasting or being a fortune teller, but I have hope that there is a more of an appreciation of what can be done, given the opportunity to work from home and having more balance. I think as a society, especially in American society, you look at how we operate in contrast to places like Europe, where they really take their leisure time seriously and almost have 3 months of vacation. We're completely opposite. We're lucky if we get 2 weeks. So I hope there's a broader sense of understanding of what it means after this to be part of a corporation and also be a family, person, and a deeper appreciation for what that truly means, not only from people that are out in the workforce, appreciating what their spouses do on the daily with kids who are particularly staying home. I hope there's just a greater understanding coming out of this between people that are working and people that are having to stay home with children. I'm hoping that also there's a greater level of understanding of how we can use the tools that we have to achieve things when we're not together, and that we learn ways to leverage and bend those tools to give us greater freedom to get things done.
right. No, I think that's great. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but any other thoughts that you want to share about this topic, and just kind of what maybe your thoughts and feelings? What else do you want to leave our listeners with?
You know, I've been lucky to have experience. I experience people from your program. I have somebody I work with every day, Veronica, who you mentioned. She's wonderful and a really amazing thinker. And then I had Hunter for Okerlund, for a spring rookie who's now been offered a job at UA on a contract basis, which amid this climate is like a miracle in itself. So I'm really
Yep.
proud of that.
Yep.
Having found him and spending time with Veronica. I think the important things for me to maybe leave listeners with is to not give up, to have a lot of hope during this time, to be optimistic about the future. You have to be. If we're going to survive this, that's just not even a question. You got to try. So remain steadfast in being optimistic and positive. And other than that, I think I am hoping that someday I get to see all of you and spend time with you in Utah versus just being in a virtual space that we're in right now. I'm looking forward to the day I can come onto the campus and actually shake hands, give hugs, and hopefully impart some of my journey and, I'm not going to say wisdom, but at least some of the things I've learned in this world of the athletic and outdoor industry. So just really looking forward to seeing people again and having meaningful conversations with folks again. More
Same.
than anything.
Yeah, same. I'm feeling the same way. Well, and I'll say it, wisdom. There's been a lot of wisdom shared today. So if you won't say it, I will.
Well, that's generous. That's nice of you.
Well, how do people stay in touch with you? I know this is a busy time, but is there a
Yeah.
best way if people do want to get in touch? How would they do that?
I LinkedIn is a pretty good tool to
Yep.
do that. I think that's probably one of the better tools. There's always, I think you have my email address. If people want to get a hold of me through there, that's always a good way to do it too. Um, I try and be as accessible as possible. I don't always, I get nailed on a daily with emails. So
Yep.
some way in there, I got to find time for my family and work and some
Yep.
other stuff that I'm trying to do over here. Um, but I will try, and I promise the more somebody puts effort into that, um, I appear. So sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times of rattling my cage, but I'm like, oh, that person,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
I never get like to the point of like a person being annoying. So it's good. It's good that somebody wants to talk to me that much. I'm like, hey, I got to make time for
Yeah.
this person. So it's never annoying to me. I I welcome as many people as I can into our house at Under Armour. I really try and, going back to what I was saying about culture, I really try and make it feel like family, and that we're trying to look out for each other as much as we can and be honest with each other. So yeah, if people want to talk, I will try and make myself available for sure.
Well, we'll include your LinkedIn in the description for this. So if people want to
Cool.
reach out that way, that's probably best then.
That'd be
Well,
awesome.
John, you've given so much time and again, wisdom. I appreciate you just being willing to share your experience. And there's a lot there that we didn't cover. We could easily do a part two. But thanks
I
for
love
being
it.
willing. Yeah, thanks for being willing to share it. It's so
Yeah.
valuable, and it's good to see you. At some point, we'll see you in person.
Well, I thinking back to last summer, it was great to have you on our
Mhm.
campus in Portland, and you brought a couple of great people with you that I still remember, and um, yeah, I can't wait for us to have the opportunity to sit down across from each other again and just have some time together.
Yeah. Well, hopefully sooner rather than later. But
That's
in the
right.
meantime, thanks for all you do, and keep staying safe over there.
You too, man.
Okay.
Take
Thank
care.
you.